Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got to talk about Spider-Man Brand New Day. And now that I'm freshly rested and back from Las Vegas, I can tell you, not only did I have a good time, but so did Spider-Man. That's right, a brand new day had a brand new day, or a brand new weekend that just made the Odyssey look silly. And we'll get into a breakdown of whether or not the Odyssey's profitable yet, or whether or not Spider-Man beat him to the punch, but I think we already know the answers to those. So stick around, because wow, these numbers, whoo, here we go. Now, of course, before I get started, just a real quick reminder, I am trying to get to 50K. I can do that with your kind help. So do me the small favor of double checking you're still subscribed by looking down below and hitting the subscribe button if it doesn't say subscribe. And go ahead and hit the thumbs up button now, because that helps a big time. And then when we get towards the end of the video, which if you stick around to the end, I'll really appreciate that. Let me know what you think and what your thoughts are on Spider-Man Brand New Day or the Odyssey, or both. Now, Spider-Man Brand New Day, going into the weekend, it looked like it was going to have the third best second weekend of all time with 143 million. That was the box office update from Deadline by Anthony all the way back on the 8th. That was Saturday. Now, I think those numbers are very close. In fact, when we get to the final numbers just a moment, I think you'll think they were very close as well. As far as the Odyssey goes, though, that's a different conversation, and we're going to do some comparatives, something we don't normally do. I may start doing more regularly, and if you want me to do those kinds of breakdowns similar to Odin, let me know in the comment section below as well. Now, Spider-Man Brand New Day swings into second weekend with 43 million on Friday, which was a good indication that this thing was going to do very well. In fact, I would say that the numbers that we were seeing around this film, well, they just kept staying nice and high up until this last weekend. And yeah, there was a little bit of a drop, or a little bit more than a little bit of a drop, much more substantial than the first weekend drop of the Odyssey. Does that mean very much? Probably not, because of the record-setting opening that Spider-Man had, burying many of the other films that had come out this year. In fact, when we look at the final box office numbers, you're going to wonder if this film isn't going to be the biggest of the year. I'm predicting it is. It's going to be bigger than Doomsday, and Doomsday is starting to look really dour. In fact, I'm going to drop a video on you this week about that. Now, because this was such a good prediction of what was likely to happen over the weekend, it wasn't surprising to find this, that the $143 million second weekend was confirmed by yet another PMC outlet, The Hollywood Reporter. So they were pretty much setting up the idea that this film was going to do this well. Was it a surprise to anybody? No. Is it a surprise that Spider-Man does good? No. Spider-Man has always been a film franchise you could bet on since they first started making them with Tobey Maguire. All I can say is this: Spider-Man is always a proven winner. I don't think anybody can argue. But I wasn't quite expecting what actually happened, because things got even more wild and, comparatively speaking, really did make the Odyssey look silly. Also, it made Nolan look silly. And the reason I say this is because when you take a look at this headline, in fact, let's take a look at it now, The Odyssey becomes Christopher Nolan's highest grossing movie ever at the box office with $1.1 billion. It took a long time to get there. This was August 9th, which is Sunday. So if you're watching this on a Sunday or you're watching it on Monday, just know that it took it a long time to get to this number. At the same time, it's incredibly misleading. Why do I say that? Well, I say it because of this. The adjustment for inflation. And of course, using a little, Google foo, I came up with this. Adjusted for inflation, Dark Knight Rises of 2012 remains Christopher Nolan's highest grossing film of all time, with an estimated inflation-adjusted worldwide gross around $1.58 billion, followed by Dark Knight in 2008 at roughly $1.53. So, no, the Odyssey is not the big winner here. If you adjust for inflation, I'm sorry, you're just lying to yourself. So, again, it's Anthony D'Alessandro who's, I don't know, maybe lying to himself, maybe lying to you, but at least I'm not going to let him get away with it. We need to start calling these people on the carpet for things like this, including people in our own sphere. We need to be part of the inflation bros and call out when there's been such a radical departure from reality when it comes to the rates with which prices have increased. So, adjusted for inflation, Gone with the Wind is still, as far as I know, the biggest film ever made. Doesn't matter. That's not what these kinds of stories are out there to do. They're out there to glaze the donuts. Do you know what I don't do? I don't glaze the donuts, and I don't want you to either. So let's move on because the numbers got to where they needed to be. And I have to say I was impressed because Variety reported just a little bit ago that the box office for Spider-Man Brand New Day flies to the third biggest second weekend of all time with $145 million. Those are big numbers. 145 domestically. I don't even know what to tell you. We're going to get into the grosses as far as the worldwide in just a moment. But it is basically in its own stratosphere, passing the likes of Toy Story 5, which it blew by, of course, during its first weekend. Brand New Day scored the third biggest second weekend of all time, trailing just 2015 Star Wars The Force Awakens with $149 million and 2019's Endgame with $147 million. Now, I'm going to do the same thing that I did last week. There's a decent chance that after the revisions come up, that the numbers will also go up, and this will again beat Avengers Endgame and the Star Wars Awakens. Is it going to make that big a jump? I don't know. Possibly, but would it surprise anybody? No, I don't think it would. I mean, the opening record-setting domestic at $355 million was enormous. If you consider that in just its opening weekend, it had $932 million globally, those numbers are staggering. And the fact that it's barreling toward $2 billion after just 10 days of release is ludicrous. I don't know what the right term is. I do know this, that when you look at the articles being written right now, they're written with a little bit more reverence. And they're even written in context. In a distant second place on domestic box office charts, The Odyssey remained muscular with $31.5 million in its fourth weekend of release, only a 38% decline, with $461 million domestically and $1.1 billion worldwide. Why is it doing so well in the States? That confuses me. I mean, we have 41 of the 71, I guess, IMAX 70 millimeter theaters. Maybe that's some of it. I don't know, but Spider-Man Brand New Day made it into IMAX and still kept up the momentum, the big mo. But we're not done. We have to look at the actual numbers and then take a look at some comparison charts that I want you to stick around for because, well, they're more than a little bit surprising. When you take a look at the numbers, that's right, Spider-Man Brand New Day at 145. A 60% drop. Again, not the final numbers yet. I expect these to go up. But so far, $655 million gross dollars domestically in 10 days of release. The Odyssey, of course, $31.5 million with a note of 38% drop, 3,600 theaters remaining, and about an average of 8,700 per theater. Not bad. 461, 173 in total domestic gross, which puts it, well, almost $200 million behind Spider-Man Brand New Day after 14 more days in release. One night only, $5.7 million in its premiere weekend with 3,012 screens, only making that limited amount of money in its opening weekend, along with Super Troopers, who also disappoints despite Broken Lizard's best efforts. The $4 million earned was only in 2,760 theaters. Now, let's be fair. A lot of these films aren't releasing into the same kind of auditorium totals as obviously Brand New Day. That's largely because the exhibitors know where their bread is buttered and they're only going to invest in the films they know are going to make money, which is why the total auditorium numbers for Toy Story 5 were reduced once again down to 2,660 theaters and only earning $3.9 million, another 42% drop. However, if you take a look at the numbers, it is a total gross domestically of $470 million. 52 days of release, and it's still chugging along. Minions and Monsters stayed in sixth place at $3.5 million after falling another 42% itself. Speaking of where they wanted things to be, Moana in seventh place, 2,465 theaters, and $121.4 million in domestic gross after 31 days is kind of a bummer. And finally, The Ice Cream Man. You got to stop him when he's passing by. Old Van Halen reference. $2 million in its opening weekend, 3 days into release. And, well, I mean, let your mind wander what that could possibly be. The Invite, the Olivia Wilde experiment, continues with a $24 million total gross in 45 days. And Cat Video Fest rolling into the 10th position as of now, which I find hysterical. Every single year that one of these releases, it somehow fights its way into the charts at a very high level, despite only being in 255 theaters. My goodness, $500,000 on that. Tony opened up disappointingly, for lack of a better way of describing it, and everything else was also Rands, under $300,000. Look at these numbers. Now, only 23 films are reporting as of the time that I'm recording this video. There will be more. There'll be about 31 films reporting or so once we get the final numbers in. But right now, that still keeps the box office over $200 million. Again, primarily off of one film. Now, we need to compare that one film to one of the other films that kept it on top, which is The Odyssey. So with the weekend start, and I thought this would be really important to take a look at it this way, the current box office for The Odyssey was $1.008 billion, and Spider-Man's was $1.259 billion, already on its way to $1.5 billion. You had a studio rental share of $478 million for The Odyssey, and yet Spider-Man had $614 million. You had a total expense of budget plus P&A plus interest and all the other associated fees of $410 million for The Odyssey and $425 million for Spider-Man Brand New Day. So, back-end talent drag is the conversation about what the first dollar gross studio net was for Nolan, which at the beginning of the weekend was $95.68 million, and for Spider-Man was only a normal talent pool share of $45 million. So already net negatives are lower. And if you look at the pure theatrical cash flow, $27.28 million loss for The Odyssey up until, well, the beginning of the weekend, and then Spider-Man Brand New Day at $144.4 million in profit for the studio already. Going into the complete weekend, as you can see here, you had a current box office of $1.104 billion for The Odyssey and $1.670 billion for Spider-Man. That's a lot of money. And of course, the studio rental share went up for both at $523 million for The Odyssey and $788.8 million for Spider-Man Brand New Day. Total expenses, budget, P&A, and all the interest and everything else associated, because both of these projects were delayed. You have $410 million, $425 million, numbers that do not change. And then the back-end talent drag got steeper for our friends over there at Universal with The Odyssey, as Nolan clears another $104.6 million. And the small pool increase for Spider-Man Brand New Day brought their number into $75 million, which means at this point in time, The Odyssey squeaked out a small profit, unless there's some other expense hiding in there I could not find, of $8.54 million. Now, Spider-Man Brand New Day, however, in only its second weekend, is now $288.82 million into profit. And of course, you have to divide that up between two studios, 25% off to Disney for doing very little, and 75% off to Sony for doing a whole lot. Also, it's worth mentioning that you're going to see a lot of stories out there that are going to try to sell you on the idea that the Disney merchandise is going to make up a huge gap and Sony is just out of luck, which isn't true, because promotional merchandise for the film fall 100% into Sony's camp. But that doesn't matter, because merchandise sales, PVOD sales, or any of the other things that are going to tell you make more revenue really don't. And that's going to be the ultimate difference at the end of the day between Spider-Man Brand New Day and what Universal's able to pull from Odyssey. But that difference is going to be very small. The outright cash performance of these two films are the only things that are relevant when we talk about them here on my channel. And don't go conflating all those other things that are very much inconsequential in the total earnings conversation. And with all that being said, What do you think? Do you think Spider-Man Brand New Day cracks the $2 billion mark faster than we thought? Do you think it gets to that particular goal by the end of its second full week? Do you think by the time we're talking next weekend, we're looking at a $2 billion plus? Do you think it's going to climb over the tops of some of the biggest films ever, including Avatar and even Endgame being re-released at the end of the year? Those thoughts and others, all from you down in the comments section below. As always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Just hopefully watching a good movie.